Hi, I'm Mindy of Henley Handmade, and welcome to my new series, Design Diaries. My intention for this series is to give you a peek behind the scenes of what it takes to design, test, and release a new knitting pattern into the world. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy this, please tap the like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications by clicking the bell so that you are notified when I release my next episode. Thanks again for being here. One last note before I get started. This is something new for me. As I assembled footage for this little episode, I noticed that there were a lot of things that I forgot to capture on camera. So if you enjoy this, I'd love to try it again, so let me know, but using any of your suggestions that would make it better for you. So please do leave comments with suggestions, or you can always pop me an email too. I really appreciate your feedback. Okay, let's get started. Some designs begin based on what has been popular with my audience, and some designs begin because I feel like taking on a particular creative challenge. In this case, though, I felt like designing another sock because the many challenges I faced while designing the Carmala lace shallot were still fresh. And to tell you the truth, I was longing to cast on a comfort project. Socks are exactly that for me, so that's what I set out to create with this next project. So now I know I want to design socks. The next questions I ask myself are, do I have yarn that I've been dying to turn into socks? Or do I already have a stitch pattern in mind? This time I picked up a skein of gorgeous yarn on local yarn shop day from Wooltown, one of my local yarn shops located in Bend, Oregon. It's from a local dyer, Temolo Fiber, on Ghost Town fingering weight base. The colorway is called Galapagos. It's just beautiful. It's one of those yarns that nearly jumped off the shelf and into my basket the second I saw it. It's 100% non-superwash wool, which if you've been around me for very long, you'll know I'm a huge fan of. Basically, between that and the colors, this yarn is 100% me. So now I've chosen the type of project that I want to design, and I've also chosen my yarn. Next up is choosing a stitch pattern, and this is the fun stuff. Now, I've noticed my community has really liked my socks with lots of texture, so I'm thinking that's probably the way I want to go. I'll take a break from lace. My last 3 designs were fairly lace heavy, so I'd love to go back to lots of beautiful texture with just simple knits and purls, hopefully. So here's where I pull out my favorite stitch dictionaries and start thumbing through them to see what jumps out at me. My all-time favorite stitch dictionary is the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible by Hitomi Shida. I'm sorry if I say that wrong. But I'm also pulling out 2 others, which also sometimes give me some ideas. The Knitting All-Around Stitch Dictionary by Wendy Bernard and 750 Knitting Stitches, and that was published by St. Martin's Griffin. I'm thinking about my yarn choice. I want to choose a stitch pattern that won't be hidden by the color variegation of the yarn, which means usually a simple stitch pattern works best. It could be like stockinette with simple purl interruptions, some sort of ribbing variation, that type of thing. Looking through my books, 2 separate sort of spaced out knots patterns have caught my eye. I'm not 100% convinced these will create enough texture against this particular colorway, but that's just something I'm going to keep in mind while I take some notes in my design journal. Actually, let's call it my design diary now. As I open my design diary, I noticed that I already had done a little pre-work for this next design. I like to jot down ideas when they come to me in my design diary, and then I have them there to flip back to when I'm looking for an idea. So I had found a couple of stitch patterns in the Japanese Stitch Bible that I had sketched out onto a sock. Unfortunately, I think the pattern has too much going on in it for my chosen colorway this time, but it has made me stop to consider my yarn choice for the first time. I really love this yarn and I want to use it because it's so beautiful and it promotes a local to me dyer and it supports my local yarn shop, Wooltown. So I'm going to keep this idea for another time while I continue to noodle out ideas for this yarn that I've so completely fallen in love with. I sketched out and charted 2 knot style stitch patterns to swatch. They both require a type of bubble. Historically, I really don't like knitting bobbles, but these aren't true bobbles and they look much easier, so I'm going to give them a try and see what happens. If I don't love it, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board, but I do want to try them. So both of them are multiples of 6 stitches. So I'll need to make some modifications to make the pattern work smoothly for a standard 56, 64, and 72 stitch fingering weight sock. At this point, I like to pull out my planning pages to get an idea of when I'd like to complete specific points of my design process. For example, my first milestone is always swatching stitch patterns and yarn. I like to get a date on my calendar for completing that and the other little milestones that I've created for myself so that I can plan the time that I will be devoting to this design. If you're curious, my other chosen milestones are so number 1 is swatching stitch patterns and yarn. Number 2 is blocking, measuring, and making final stitch pattern decisions. Number 3, writing the pattern, at least getting the bulk of it in written form. Number 4 is knitting the sample and making sure everything is working as I had planned. And at this point, this is where I'm going to be reworking things that don't work, going back to my written pattern and adjusting things in my written pattern, and trying again and seeing if new modifications are better or if I need to keep tweaking things. And step 5 is when I reach out to my tech editor for editing. I also include my pattern photography in this step, although I nearly always postpone it. Number 6 is my test knit. Number 7 is the end of my test knit. So I guess number 6 is beginning my test knit. Number 7 is ending the test knit because I like to have those two as separate dates on my calendar. And then finally, number 8 is releasing the pattern. Like all projects, it's never a bad thing to put these on my calendar so I can see where holidays, appointments, birthdays, other commitments land. And so I can factor those in accordingly as I'm working through my design process. With my design idea sketched out and my milestone goals scheduled, it's time to wind up my yarn. Once I have my yarn caked up, I'll cast on and dive into swatching for this new sock pattern. Come back next week when I'll share how swatching went and where I went from there. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe to help support what I do here at Hanlia Handmade. I really appreciate it. See you next week. If you're still watching, I thought it would be interesting, perhaps, to you to watch me partially at least wind my yarn, because I did have a couple of problems as I was trying to wind it. The ties were a little bit tighter than what I would normally expect on a skein of yarn, so I was really careful when I was cutting those off. And while I was doing that, I did accidentally cut the actual end of the yarn so it was loose when I was giving the yarn a good thwack to help loosen and straighten the separate yarn pieces from the hank. I like to give it a good whack on my knee to help loosen that up before I start winding. And then you will see as I start winding, it was a little tangled and twisted still, but a little bit of detangling, and it was good to go. So it happens to every knitter when you're winding your yarn. Don't worry if it happens to you, because even it happens to all of us. And I just wanted to make sure that you saw this, and I didn't cut it out. I mean, it's almost sort of blooper level, but I thought it was important to share with you. So it happens to everyone. You're not alone.